Welcome to this Inkscape tutorial. Today's tutorial will introduce you to the Inkscape interface and will introduce some of the basic drawing tools and functions. I would like to start by noting that I will be using the Mac version of Inkscape, but it is available to download and use completely free on Windows, Linux, and of course Mac operating systems. It is a full free version, not a trial or limited feature version. Inkscape is a vector-based graphics program, and in this way it is very similar to Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW. When working on a graphics project, you can either use a vector-based or a pixel-based program. While both have their own strengths and weaknesses, I will not spend a lot of time on that. Rather, I will briefly describe the difference so you can decide which program is best suited for your needs. When talking about a vector-based drawing, you can think of them as line-based. When you have any vector-based object or image, you can resize it and it'll keep its proportions perfectly. What that means is if you have any shape or curvy line and you resize it, if you zoom in on that, you'll notice that the lines stay crisp and smooth, regardless of what you do to them. A pixel program, such as Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Paint, is made up of many little dots. The amount of dots and size of the dots is based on the detail you have set. This means that if you have a lot of detail in your drawing, your file will be rather large. When you compress it, you will lose the detail you once had. This also means that if you have a small file, photo or graphic, when you want to make it larger, you will lose detail and it may appear blurry. As you can see, we have a star and a curvy line as well here. Already you can notice that the lines aren't as smooth and crisp as our vector-based drawing. And if we take this and resize it to half the size, you'll notice that those lines have become even more jagged. If we would even take this half-sized image and resize it back to its original size, so twice as large as it is now, you'll notice that we still have those jagged lines that were worse off than our original drawing. This is the main difference between a vector-based and a pixel-based drawing. Okay, with that brief introduction, we will proceed and introduce the Inkscape interface and show you some of the basic features and tools at your disposal. And before you know it, you'll be making some crazy amazing graphics. As you can see along the top of the screen, you have your regular toolbar. This is like any other toolbar in a computer program. However, the options available are specific to Inkscape. Below that, you'll see on the top and on the side what I like to call tool and feature palettes. These are the more commonly used tools and features that you will find yourself using, and you can also customize these toolbars to show the tools and features you prefer to use. To make things simple and for our use today, we can think of the palette on the left as being the tool palette, while the palette on the top is more of a features palette. For example, we can select the rectangle tool in our tool palette, and you'll notice that the rectangle tool is highlighted, indicating that we have selected it. We can now draw a rectangle. If we look at the palette along the top, you'll notice that the options have changed from when we were using the selector tool. This is because the features available differ according to the tool you have selected. Before we continue with our rectangle tool, and then introduce the selector tool, let's talk a bit about navigation. The basic concepts of the mouse apply. Left-clicking will select different objects that you've drawn. Left-clicking and dragging will give you a selection window. And right-clicking will give you a shortcut menu. You can scroll and view your space with the assistance of the scroll wheel. Scrolling up and down will scroll your page up and down. You can also move your page with this slide bar on the side and on the bottom. If you click and hold down your scroll wheel, you'll be able to pan around your workspace. Holding Control and then scrolling with your scroll wheel will allow you to zoom in and out. And holding Shift, clicking and holding the scroll wheel will allow you to select a selection window and zoom in on that space. You can also zoom in and out by pressing the plus and minus control keys on your keyboard. Now that we have that down, let's go back to our rectangle. This rectangle that we have drawn is a specific size. And this is useful because when we print it out, it'll be exactly that size, which will allow us to very accurately size graphics that we are drawing. There are a few different ways that we can size the rectangle. By selecting the rectangle tool, you'll notice we have these two margins on the top and on the side with measurements that start at the edge of your page and go to the side and down. With this, we can get a rough idea of how large our rectangle is going to be. But it is by no means accurate. Here we'll try to go for 25 by 25 millimeters. As you noticed, up here our features have changed, and with the rectangle selected, we can see that we got pretty close, but not exactly. We also see that we have unit options here, and we can change it to inches, as well as points. Inches and millimeters are your imperial and metric units, and points are pixel-based, which is more of a graphic-specific unit of measurement. We'll stick with millimeters for now. Now we were trying to go for 25 by 25, so if we go in here and change these numbers to 25 by 25, you'll notice the rectangle adjusted slightly, and now it's exactly that size. We can also manipulate this rectangle a bit more. As you can see, you have a little circular dot in the corner, and these little square dots on the other corners. The square dots will allow you to resize your rectangle. If you hold Shift down at the same time, it'll resize it proportionally. The circle dot allows you to put a curve to the edge. As you drag one down, you'll notice there's still one there. That one can drag side to side. This allows you to adjust the curve unevenly. You can also control this curved edge with these Rx and Ry numbers. Let's leave it square for now. From the toolbar, let's select the selector tool, which looks like a regular mouse cursor. Now you can see that if we select a an object that we have drawn, we're able to move it around, and we're also able to resize it with these grips in the corners. Again, if we hold Shift down, it'll resize it proportional, otherwise it'll let us free size it. The straight up and down and side to side allow you to resize it in just one direction. Once again, we can change our width and height in our options menu up here as well. We can also adjust and manipulate this rectangle further. By clicking on it a second time, you'll change the options you have available. This will allow you to skew your rectangle both horizontally and vertically. It'll also allow you to rotate it. As you can see, there's a little plus sign in the middle. By moving that plus sign, you can change what the pivot point of rotating is. You can also put this plus sign outside of the object itself, and once again, it will rotate around that point. It'll default in the center of your object, so we can put it back if we want. You'll also notice that the rectangle we drew was already red, and it has a bit of a purple outer line. That is because previous settings had the rectangle have a fill and a stroke color. The fill color is the color that fills the entire shape, and the stroke is the color of the border. You can change these colors by selecting a new color from the bottom color palette options. If you just select a different color, you'll change the fill color. If you hold Shift and select a color, you'll change the stroke color. You can also have no color for either your fill or your stroke. This is useful if you have a colored background. If your fill color was orange, or maybe purple, you would see it. However, by having no fill color, you no longer see it. Now, all of these features and steps that we have taken in creating this rectangle, you're able to use when using the other tools at your disposal. So let's go ahead and look at some of these other tools. We have a circle. Again, holding Shift will size it proportionally. Otherwise, it's a free sizing. We also have a star pentagon tool. It will default to drawing a star. However, once it's drawn, you can select this extra point to adjust it from a star shape all the way through back again to a star shape. But you have a pentagon as well as a multi-sided shape in between there. If we pick a shape, we can adjust either from the point or from the inside corner. We also have a swirl tool, a free drawn pencil tool, a vector line tool, which allows us to draw straight lines, or if you click and drag, curved lines. We have a calligraphy tool, and we can do text boxes. We can also use this spray painting tool, but we won't get into that this time around. One more thing I'd like to note is, as this is a vector-based drawing, all of the objects that we've drawn are vector-based and they work around something called nodes. Nodes are little points along your lines that you can adjust and edit. As you can see at the top, we have this Edit Paths by Nodes tool. This allows you to select a tool and edit the nodes. As you can see, the star we already went over a bit, and it only has the two main nodes that allow you to adjust it. The rectangle as well had the size nodes as well as the node that adjusts the curved edges. If we look at our line though, we have a lot more nodes at our disposal. You can also see that we have this line with a circular adjuster on the side. This will allow you to adjust the curve of the line. In this way, we can play around with our lines to really be able to manipulate them. This counts the same for our free drawing line. As that was truly hand-drawn, it reacts to fine movements of your mouse and therefore has added a lot more points that we can also adjust individually. So before we finish off this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to save your drawing. Up in the File toolbar, you can click Save or Save As. If you've already been working on a drawing and you're wanting to make some changes, you don't necessarily want to lose your original drawing. So you want to Save As. That'll allow you to create a new file copy and continue drawing it, while still having the old file to revert back to. When you click Save or Save As, you'll be given an option of where to save it. You'll also be given the option about what file format you want to use. The SVG is a standard vector graphics format and is quite standard across different programs. Saving it in this format will allow you to open it up in, for example, Illustrator and CorelDRAW. So we can give the file a name and save it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and you've learned something new.